What's the one organ that never gets a day off? Your heart. It beats over 100,000 times every single day, never stops, never takes a break, never clocks out for lunch. From the moment you were born until this very second, it has been working non-stop, pumping blood through 60,000 miles of blood vessels, keeping you alive without asking for anything in return. So what happens when you decide to skip a few meals? What happens inside your chest when dinner doesn't come? Most people assume their heart would panic, that it needs constant fuel to keep pumping, that missing breakfast, lunch, or dinner would somehow stress this tireless organ. But here's what science discovered, and it might be the most surprising thing you learn about your body today. Your heart doesn't starve when you fast, it transforms. This is educational content, not medical advice. If you have heart conditions or take medications, talk to your doctor before changing how you eat. Now let's take a journey inside your chest, hour by hour, and discover what really happens to the most important muscle in your body when food stops coming. The answer might change everything you thought you knew about fasting. Before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed. You won't want to miss what we discover about this incredible organ. Let's start at the beginning. The moment after your last bite, right after you finish eating, your heart is comfortable. Fuel is abundant, life is easy. Think of your heart like a car that can run on different types of fuel. Right now, it's using energy from the meal you just ate, a mix of sugar and fat floating through your bloodstream. Everything is running smoothly. No alarms, no warnings, just steady, reliable pumping. But here's something most people don't realize. Even when you're eating normally, your heart is not primarily running on sugar. This is one of the biggest myths about heart health. Most people think the heart needs sugar to survive. They think skipping meals means starving this vital organ. The truth is very different. Your heart is already a fat-burning machine. About 70 to 90% of the energy your heart uses comes from fat, not sugar, not carbs. Fat. Your heart has been running primarily on fat since the day you were born. Let that sink in for a moment. The organ you depend on for every breath, every heartbeat, every moment of your life, it prefers fat over sugar. It's been this way your entire life. You just never knew it. Sugar only provides a small portion of what your heart needs. The rest? Your heart prefers to burn fat even when sugar is readily available. It's like having a luxury car that runs better on premium fuel, except your heart came pre-programmed this way from birth. This is important because it means your heart isn't as dependent on your meals as you might think. It's been burning fat all along. You just didn't know it. So when you stop eating, your heart doesn't suddenly face a crisis. It simply adjusts the fuel mix. A little less of this, a little more of that. No drama, no emergency. And here's where things start to get interesting. As the hours pass without food, something changes inside you. Imagine your body as a house. When resources become limited, you don't keep every light blazing in every room. You start turning off lights in rooms you're not using. You conserve. You become efficient. You prioritize what matters most. That's exactly what your body does. Insulin, the hormone that controls blood sugar, starts to drop. This is the signal, the message that food isn't coming anytime soon. And this signal triggers a cascade of changes throughout your entire system. When insulin falls, your body opens the storage rooms. Fat cells start releasing their contents. Fatty acids flood into your bloodstream. The liver begins converting this fat into usable energy. Your metabolism shifts from digest and store mode to release and burn mode. It's like flipping a switch from saving to spending, from accumulation to utilization. But here's the fascinating part. Your heart barely notices this transition. Why? Because your heart has been burning fat as its primary fuel source all along. This isn't new territory for your heart. This is home. For your heart, this shift is like switching from regular gas to premium. The engine keeps running smoothly, no sputtering, no struggle, no complaints. While other parts of your body are adjusting to the absence of food, your heart continues beating with the same steady rhythm it always has. 60 beats per minute, 70, whatever your normal is. Unchanged, unfazed, unimpressed by the lack of food. It's almost like your heart was designed for this. And actually, it was. Around the 12-hour mark, something remarkable begins. Your liver starts doing something it's been doing for millions of years of human evolution. It takes the fat being released from your storage and transforms it into something special. Ketones. You might have heard this word before. Ketones are small packages of energy compact and clean easy for your body to use. Think of them as premium fuel pods that can travel anywhere in your body, crossing barriers that other fuels cannot. Your brain loves ketones. It can use them when sugar isn't available. This is how your ancestors survived long winters and failed hunts. Their brains kept working, kept problem solving, kept them alive, even when food was scarce. But your heart loves ketones even more. When ketones arrive, your heart welcomes them like an old friend. It starts burning them alongside fat, and something interesting happens. Ketones burn cleaner than other fuels. Think about the difference between burning a high-quality candle versus a cheap one. Both produce light and heat. Both do the job. But one burns clean with barely any smoke, while the other leaves soot and residue everywhere. When your heart burns ketones, it produces less oxidative stress, less cellular exhaust, less wear and tear on the machinery that keeps you alive. It's cleaner energy for a cleaner operation. Think of it as the difference between powering your home with clean solar energy versus burning coal. Both work. But one leaves your system in better shape over time. This isn't a flaw in human design. This is a feature. Your ancestors didn't have refrigerators. They didn't have grocery stores open 24 hours. They didn't have food delivery apps or midnight snacks. They went days between successful hunts, walking miles on empty stomachs, hearts beating strong the entire time. Think about that for a moment. Those early humans had to chase down prey. They had to walk for miles searching for food. They had to stay alert for predators. All of this on an empty stomach. And their hearts never failed them. The heart in your chest right now is descended from hearts that thrived during scarcity. It carries the same programming, the same genetic code, the same ability to switch fuels and keep going when times get tough. When you fast, you're not torturing your heart. You're speaking its ancient language, the language of your ancestors, the language of survival. But if you have existing heart conditions or take heart medications, this is where you need to be careful. Fasting can interact with medications, and the timing of when you eat can matter. Always work with your doctor if you fall into this category. Now we enter territory that scientists have only recently begun to understand. Deep inside the cells of your heart, there's something like a master switch. Researchers call it BDH1, but you can think of it as your heart's head mechanic, a specialist who lives inside every heart cell, waiting to be called into action. When you've been fasting long enough, this mechanic wakes up, and when it does, it starts optimizing everything. Here's what makes this mechanic special. It doesn't just do one job, it does two. First, it helps your heart use ketones more efficiently. It fine-tunes the system so your heart extracts maximum energy from this premium fuel. Every ketone molecule gets used to its fullest potential. Nothing wasted. But second, and this surprised even the scientists who discovered it, it also helps your heart burn regular fat better than before. One worker, two jobs, both done exceptionally well. Researchers discovered this by studying what happens when this switch is turned off. Hearts without this mechanic struggled. They couldn't burn fat efficiently. They accumulated waste products. Exercise tolerance dropped. Performance suffered across the board. It was like a car with a clogged exhaust system still running, but nowhere near its potential. But when the switch is on, when the mechanic is working, your heart becomes more efficient. It burns fuel cleaner. It operates closer to its design potential. It performs the way it was meant to perform. This doesn't happen after one skipped meal. It takes time. Your body needs to recognize that this isn't a fluke, that fasting is becoming a pattern worth adapting to. Studies suggest that intermittent fasting done consistently over time triggers these adaptations over weeks. Your heart literally remodels its metabolism at the cellular level. It becomes better at its job, more efficient, more resilient. Not because it's struggling, because it's optimizing. And this leads us to one of the most surprising discoveries in recent heart research. Here's something that changed how scientists think about heart health. When researchers studied failing hearts, hearts that were weak, tired, struggling to keep pumping, they found something unexpected. These struggling hearts weren't reaching for sugar, they were reaching for ketones. In patients with heart failure, ketone usage nearly tripled compared to healthy hearts, 3 times more. The failing heart, desperate for fuel it could use efficiently, turned to ketones like a drowning person reaches for a life preserver. It grabbed onto ketones as if its life depended on it. Because, in a way, it did. Think about what this means. When hearts are in trouble, when they need help the most, they instinctively shift toward the same fuel that fasting provides. The struggling heart doesn't want more sugar. It wants ketones. It craves them. It reaches for them automatically. This discovery opened new questions in cardiology. Could ketones actually be a preferred fuel for hearts under stress? Could fasting-induced ketones provide something that constant feeding doesn't? The research is still ongoing. Scientists are careful not to make claims too big for the evidence, but the pattern is striking. Healthy hearts can use ketones efficiently. Struggling hearts actively seek them out, and fasting naturally produces them. Now, this doesn't mean you should try to treat heart disease by skipping meals. That would be dangerous and irresponsible. If you have heart problems, you need medical care, not dietary experiments. But for healthy hearts, this research suggests that periods without food might not be the stress we once assumed. They might be something your heart was built to handle, maybe even something it was waiting for. Science wouldn't be science if there weren't different findings to consider. In 2024, a study made headlines when it suggested that people who ate within an 8-hour window had higher risk of dying from cardiovascular disease. The news spread everywhere. Suddenly, intermittent fasting looked dangerous. But here's what you need to know. That study was based on questionnaires. People reported what they remembered eating over just 2 days. The researchers couldn't control for what those people ate, how healthy they were otherwise, or dozens of other factors that affect heart health. Many cardiologists call the findings thought-provoking, but far from conclusive. Some pointed out that people who restrict eating windows might do so because they're already unhealthy. Correlation doesn't mean causation. The truth is, we're still learning. Some research shows fasting improves markers of heart health, blood pressure improvements, better cholesterol profiles, reduced inflammation. Other research raises questions about long-term effects. What does this mean for you? It means listening to your body matters more than following any trend. It means some people might thrive with intermittent fasting while others might not. It means the conversation isn't over. And it means you should never ignore what your heart is telling you. Your heart has a way of communicating with you. During fasting, most people feel fine, maybe a little hungry, maybe a bit low on energy at first, but their hearts keep beating normally, steadily, without complaint. However, if you feel your heart racing when it shouldn't be, if you notice skipped beats fluttering or pounding in your chest that doesn't go away, that's your heart raising its hand. That's your body asking for attention. That's a signal you cannot ignore. Your heart is waving a red flag. Severe dizziness, chest pressure, feeling like you might faint, cold sweats that come from nowhere. These are not signs to push through. These are signals to stop. Break your fast. Drink water with electrolytes, salt, potassium, magnesium. These minerals keep your heart's electrical system running smoothly. They're the support crew that keeps everything in rhythm. Without them, even healthy hearts can stumble. If you've been fasting and feel off, sometimes it's as simple as a pinch of salt in your water. Your body loses electrolytes when you're not eating, and your heart notices when they're low. And if something feels seriously wrong, don't wait. Get medical help. Fasting can be beneficial for many people, but your heart's safety always comes first. The goal isn't to prove how long you can go without eating. The goal is to work with your body, not against it. So what have we learned? Your heart is not a fragile organ that panics when meals are delayed. It's a metabolic masterpiece refined over millions of years of evolution, capable of switching between fuel sources with remarkable flexibility. When you fast, your heart doesn't starve. It adapts. It shifts from burning mostly fat to burning fat plus ketones. It activates internal mechanisms that improve efficiency. It operates on cleaner fuel with less oxidative waste. This doesn't mean fasting is magic. It doesn't mean everyone should do it. And it certainly doesn't mean ignoring medical advice in favor of dietary trends. But it does mean this. The next time you skip a meal and wonder if you're hurting your heart, remember what's actually happening inside your chest. Your heart is doing exactly what it evolved to do. It's not struggling, it's transforming. Not weak, not starving, adapting. That's the truth about your heart and fasting. There's something almost poetic about it. The same mechanism that kept your great-great-great-grandparents alive during harsh winters is still there waiting inside you, ready to activate when food becomes scarce, ready to help your heart thrive, not just survive. After everything science has shown us, the question isn't whether your heart can handle periods without food. It clearly can. The question is whether we've been underestimating this organ all along. Maybe we've spent too much time thinking our hearts need constant feeding. Maybe the reality is that hearts, like the humans they keep alive, were built for flexibility, for feast and famine, for abundance and scarcity. Maybe your heart knows things about survival that your conscious mind has forgotten. And maybe, just maybe, giving your heart a break from constant digestion is one of the kindest things you can do for the organ that has never taken a break from keeping you alive. Now I want to hear from you. Have you noticed changes in how your heart feels during fasting? More energy, less something unexpected? Share your experience in the comments. Your story might help someone else understand their own body better. And here's something worth thinking about. Some researchers say intermittent fasting protects the heart. Others point to studies suggesting caution. The science is still being written. Where do you stand? Does your heart need constant fuel? Or was it designed for occasional rest? Drop your thoughts below. If someone you care about is curious about fasting and worried about their heart, share this video. the science might change their perspective. Subscribe if you want to keep exploring what your body is truly capable of. And if this opened your eyes, you might want to see what happens to your brain during the first 24 hours of fasting. The mental changes might surprise you even more than what happens to your heart. Your body has secrets it's been keeping for millions of years. We're just beginning to uncover them. And your heart, it's been waiting patiently for you to discover what it's truly capable of. How fasting changes testosterone. What happens to your hormones when you stop eating for hours or even days? Specifically, what happens to testosterone, the hormone most associated with strength, energy, and vitality? Some people claim fasting boosts testosterone. Others warn it will crash your hormones completely. So what does science actually tell us? The answer is more interesting than you might expect. In this video, we are going to explore exactly how fasting affects testosterone step by step, hour by hour. And by the end, you will understand something that most people completely miss about this topic. Before we dive in, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you are considering any significant changes to your eating patterns, please consult with a healthcare professional first. Let us start with the basics. What exactly is testosterone? Testosterone is the primary male sex hormone, though it is important in both men and women. In men, it is produced mainly in the testicles. In women, it is produced in smaller amounts by the ovaries and adrenal glands. This hormone does a lot more than most people realize. It helps build and maintain muscle mass and strength. It keeps your bones dense and strong. It influences your energy levels and mood throughout the day. It plays a major role in sexual desire and function. And in men specifically, it is essential for sperm production. Now here is something important to understand. Men and women have very different testosterone levels. Men typically have between 300 to 1000 nanograms per deciliter. Women have much lower levels, usually between 15 to 70 nanograms per deciliter. That means men have roughly 10 to 20 times more testosterone than women. But even though women have less testosterone, it's still crucial for their health. It affects bone density, energy, mood, and libido in women too. This video will focus primarily on men, since testosterone is often the central concern for male health. But we will talk about how fasting affects women differently near the end. So, when you fast, what happens to testosterone? Does it go up or down? To answer that, we first need to understand how your body produces testosterone in the first place. Testosterone production starts in your brain. Specifically, it starts in a region called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus produces a hormone called GnRH, which stands for gonadotropin releasing hormone. Think of GnRH as the starting signal. When the hypothalamus releases GnRH, it travels to another part of the brain called the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland receives this signal and responds by releasing another hormone called H, or luteinizing hormone. LH then travels through your bloodstream down to the testicles. Inside the testicles, there are specialized cells called Leydig cells. When LH reaches these Leydig cells, they receive the message and start producing testosterone. The testosterone then enters your bloodstream and travels throughout your body. So the chain goes like this. The hypothalamus sends a signal. The pituitary gland passes that signal along, and the testicles respond by making testosterone. This is your testosterone production line. And it is important to understand because fasting affects different parts of this chain in different ways. There is one more thing you need to know. When testosterone enters your bloodstream, most of it does not float around freely. Instead, it binds to proteins, especially one called SHBG, which stands for sex hormone binding globulin. Only the testosterone that remains unbound, called free testosterone, can actually enter your cells and produce effects. Here is where it gets interesting. Insulin, the hormone that rises when you eat, suppresses SHBG production in the liver. So when insulin is high, SHBG tends to be lower. When you fast and insulin drops, SHBG can change, which affects how much free testosterone is available to your body. Keep this in mind as we go through what happens during a fast. Now, let us walk through the timeline of fasting and testosterone, starting from the moment you stop eating. During the first 12 hours of fasting, not much changes with testosterone. Your body is using up glucose stored in your liver and muscles called glycogen. Insulin levels start to decline, but this is a gradual process. Your testosterone production line continues operating normally. Most people experience this every night when they sleep. You eat dinner, go to bed, wake up 8 to 12 hours later, and your hormones are still functioning fine. So the first 12 hours are really just a transition period. Your body is beginning to shift, but testosterone remains stable. Between 12 and 24 hours, things start to get more interesting. Your glycogen stores are now depleted or nearly depleted. Your body begins switching to fat as its primary fuel source. And several hormones start changing significantly. One of the most dramatic changes is in growth hormone. Research from the Intermountain Medical Center found that during a 24-hour fast, growth hormone levels increased by an average of 300% in women and nearly 2,000% in men. Growth hormone helps protect your muscle mass while your body burns fat for fuel. It is your body's way of preserving what is important during food scarcity. At the same time, cortisol begins to rise. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, and fasting is a form of stress on the body. Here is the key point. Cortisol and testosterone have an inverse relationship. When cortisol goes up, testosterone tends to go down. Your body is essentially making a choice. Should it invest energy in reproduction and building muscle, or should it focus on survival and finding the next meal? During this phase, survival starts winning. You might notice testosterone beginning to decline slightly, though the changes are still modest at this point. Between 24 and 48 hours, the testosterone decline becomes more noticeable. Research shows that after about 48 hours of fasting, testosterone can drop by 30 to 35% compared to normal levels. LH, the hormone that signals the testicles to produce testosterone, also decreases. This might sound alarming, but here is what most people do not understand. While testosterone levels are dropping, something else is happening. Your testosterone production system is becoming more sensitive. A study published in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism tested this directly. Researchers had subjects fast for 56 hours, then injected them with GnRH, the hormone that starts the testosterone production chain. What they found was remarkable. After fasting, when subjects received GnRH, their testosterone increased 55% more than it did after a normal overnight fast. Their LH response was 64% higher. In other words, the longer they fasted, the more responsive their production line became. The system was primed and ready to respond strongly once it received the right signals. Why does this happen? From an evolutionary perspective, it makes sense. Our ancestors did not have refrigerators or grocery stores. They went through periods without food regularly. During those times, the body needed to conserve energy. Producing testosterone requires resources. Building muscle requires resources. Making babies during a famine is not a good survival strategy. So the body temporarily dials down testosterone production to redirect energy toward finding food and staying alive. But here is the crucial part that most people miss. The body also prepares to ramp up quickly once food becomes available again. The production line becomes more sensitive, ready to respond the moment nutrients return. This is not a flaw. This is intelligent biological design. Your body is not breaking down. It is preparing for something. Between 48 and 72 hours and beyond, your body enters a deeper state of adaptation. A process called autophagy becomes highly active. Autophagy is when your cells break down and recycle damaged or dysfunctional components. Japanese scientist Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize in 2016 for his research on this process. During autophagy, your body is essentially cleaning house at the cellular level. Testosterone remains low during this phase. The Leydig cells in your testicles are in conservation mode. But something else is happening that matters for long-term hormone health. Your body is burning fat for fuel, and this has important implications for testosterone. Body fat, especially belly fat, contains an enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase converts testosterone into estrogen. The more body fat you have, the more aromatase you have, and the more of your testosterone gets converted into estrogen. This is one reason why men with obesity often have lower testosterone and higher estrogen levels. When you fast and burn fat, you are reducing the amount of aromatase in your body. Less aromatase means less testosterone being converted to estrogen. This is a longer-term benefit of fasting, especially for men who carry excess weight. The most dramatic evidence of testosterone dropping during prolonged caloric restriction comes from a study on U.S. Army Rangers. During their brutal 8-week training course, these soldiers exercised about 7 hours per day, slept as little as 4 hours per night, and consumed about 1,000 fewer calories than they needed. After 4 weeks of this, their testosterone had dropped to what researchers described as near castrate levels. That sounds devastating. But here is the part of the story that changes everything. When the Army Rangers were finally given adequate food again, their testosterone did not just return to normal. It nearly tripled within a matter of days. The system that had been suppressed and primed during the deprivation phase responded explosively once nutrients were available. This is the refeeding phase, and it might be the most important part of the entire fasting and testosterone story. When you start eating again after a fast, several things happen rapidly. Insulin rises, which triggers other hormonal changes. IGF-1, a growth factor that helps build muscle and other tissues, increases significantly. And the pulses of LH from your pituitary gland become larger and more frequent than they would be on a normal eating day. A 1981 study demonstrated this clearly. Men fasted for 10 days and then ate normally for 5 days. During the fast, testosterone declined as expected. But after refeeding 4 out of 6, men had testosterone levels higher than before they started fasting. One man doubled his testosterone, going from 800 to 1,600 nanograms per deciliter. Research on rhesus monkeys in 1991 found the same pattern. After the monkeys fasted, the larger their refeeding meal, the bigger the pulse of LH and the greater the rise in testosterone. There was something special about eating after a period of not eating that produced a stronger hormonal response than normal eating ever did. Another striking example comes from magician David Blaine, who famously fasted for 44 days in a suspended box over the River Thames in London. This is obviously an extreme case that no one should attempt. But the data is instructive. After his fast ended and he began eating again, his testosterone rose from 449 to 867 nanograms per deciliter in just 10 days. Even after such an extreme deprivation, the refeeding response was powerful. Researcher Walter Longo has explained the mechanism behind this. When you fast, IGF-1 levels drop. This puts your body into what Longo calls auto-repair mode. Stem cells become activated. Then when you eat again, especially when you consume adequate protein, IGF-1 rises rapidly. Those activated stem cells begin replicating and building new tissue. The combination of a sensitized production line and surging growth signals creates the conditions for testosterone to rebound strongly. So fasting and testosterone is not a simple story of up or down. It is a two-phase process. During fasting, testosterone drops as your body conserves resources and primes its systems. During refeeding, testosterone can surge as your body shifts into rebuilding mode. The fasting phase prepares. The refeeding phase builds. You need both parts to get the full picture. At this point, I want to ask you something. Would you rather have high testosterone that your body cannot use efficiently or moderate testosterone, where every molecule hits your cells with maximum impact? Think about that and share your answer in the comments below. There are a few more factors worth understanding. We already mentioned aromatase and body fat. For men who are overweight, fasting can help reduce the aromatase that converts testosterone to estrogen. Over time, this can improve the overall testosterone to estrogen ratio. The relationship between insulin and SHBG also matters. Remember, SHBG is the protein that binds testosterone in your blood. When testosterone is bound to SHBG, it cannot enter cells and do its job. Only free testosterone is active. Research on over 2,800 people in Sweden found a clear inverse relationship between insulin and SHBG. When insulin is chronically high, the liver produces less SHBG. This might sound like a good thing since it means less testosterone is bound. But chronically high insulin comes with its own problems, including insulin resistance, weight gain, and metabolic dysfunction. When you fast, insulin drops significantly. This allows your body to normalize SHBG production and potentially improve your overall hormone profile. The benefit is not just about testosterone levels on a blood test. It is about how efficiently your body can use the testosterone it has. Now let us talk about safety. Fasting, especially extended fasting beyond 72 hours, requires caution. It is not appropriate for everyone. People with a history of eating disorders should avoid fasting. Those with type 1 diabetes or who are insulin dependent need medical supervision. Pregnant or breastfeeding women should not fast. People who are underweight should not restrict calories further. And anyone with existing hormonal disorders should consult a doctor first. If you do fast, watch for warning signs. Persistent dizziness that does not go away. Heart palpitations that continue. Severe mood changes or unusual fatigue beyond the normal adaptation period are all signals to stop and seek medical advice. And when you break a longer fast, do it gradually. Eating too much too quickly after an extended fast can cause refeeding syndrome, where electrolytes shift dangerously. Start with smaller amounts of easily digestible food and work your way up. Now let us address something important: women and fasting and testosterone. As I mentioned earlier, women have much lower testosterone levels than men, typically between 15 and 70 nanograms per deciliter. But testosterone still matters for female health. It affects energy, mood, bone density, and libido. Here is the thing. Fasting affects women differently than men. Women's bodies appear to be more sensitive to caloric restriction. Extended fasting can affect menstrual cycles and other reproductive hormones like estrogen and progesterone. Some research on intermittent fasting in women has shown decreases in testosterone and something called the free androgen index. Interestingly, for women with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, where testosterone is often abnormally high, This reduction might actually be beneficial. It could help improve menstrual regularity and other symptoms. But for women without PCOS, the effects of fasting on hormones are less straightforward. If you are a woman interested in fasting, consider starting with shorter fasting windows, perhaps 12 to 14 hours. Pay attention to your menstrual cycle and energy levels. And if you notice irregularities, consult with a healthcare provider. If there is enough interest, I can create a dedicated video exploring fasting and female hormones in more depth. Let me know in the comments if that would be helpful. So what have we learned? Fasting and testosterone is not a simple relationship. It is not just about levels going up or down. It is a dynamic two-phase process that reflects millions of years of human evolution. Here is the complete picture. During fasting, testosterone typically decreases. This is a normal survival response, not a malfunction. Your body is conserving resources and prioritizing essential functions. At the same time, your testosterone production system becomes more sensitive, primed to respond strongly when conditions improve. During refeeding, testosterone can surge, sometimes exceeding pre-fasting levels. This is your body shifting from conservation mode to building mode. The quality of your refeeding matters enormously. Adequate protein helps trigger the growth signals that support testosterone production. For men with excess body fat, fasting offers an additional long-term benefit by reducing aromatase activity and preserving more testosterone from being converted to estrogen. For women, the picture is different. Women are more sensitive to caloric restriction, and fasting can affect menstrual cycles and reproductive hormones. Women with PCOS might benefit from testosterone reduction, while others should approach fasting more cautiously. Some practical takeaways. Understand that temporary testosterone drops during fasting are normal and not permanent damage. Refeeding is not just the end of your fast. It is a crucial phase for hormonal recovery. Make sure to eat adequate protein when you break your fast. Shorter fasting periods, like 16 to 24 hours, are generally safer for most people than extended multi-day fasts. And if you have concerns about your hormones, get tested and work with a healthcare provider. Here is a question I want you to think about. Some experts recommend never fasting beyond 24 hours if you care about testosterone. Others point to research showing potential benefits at 72 hours and beyond. After watching this video, where do you stand? I would love to hear your perspective in the comments. If you know someone who has been worried about how fasting might affect their hormones, consider sharing this video with them. It might change how they think about the whole topic. Have you tried fasting yourself? What changes did you notice in your energy, mood, or overall sense of well-being? Share your experience below. I read every comment. And if you want to understand more about what happens in your body during the first 24 hours of fasting, I have a video that breaks that down in detail. You might find it helpful. Make sure to subscribe so you do not miss future videos exploring the science of fasting. There is so much more to discover about what your body is capable of when you give it the right conditions. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one. Do pills really break your fast? You wake up. You're 14 hours into your fast. You reach for your morning vitamins, your blood pressure pill, maybe a fish oil capsule. And then you pause. Will these pills break my fast? Will they undo everything I've worked for overnight? This is one of the most common questions in the fasting world. And today, we're going to answer it once and for all. Here's the thing. Millions of people fast every day, and millions of those same people take medications or supplements. Yet the confusion around this topic is massive. Some say any pill breaks your fast. Others say only food matters. The truth is more nuanced than either extreme, and understanding the science behind it will change how you approach fasting forever. Before we dive in, a quick note. This is educational content, not medical advice. If you take prescription medications, especially for chronic conditions like diabetes, heart disease, or thyroid issues, always follow your doctor's guidance. Never skip or change your medications for fasting. Your health comes first. Always. Today, we'll explore what actually happens inside your body when you take a pill during a fast. We'll look at which pills are completely safe, which ones might have some impact, and which ones you should definitely save for your eating window. By the end, you'll have total clarity. Let's start with something most people get wrong. When someone asks whether a pill breaks their fast, they usually think about calories. A 10-calorie vitamin, a 5-calorie fish oil capsule. They do the math and wonder if those tiny numbers matter. But here's what the science actually tells us. Breaking a fast isn't just about calories. It's about triggering specific biological responses in your body. A 10-calorie vitamin pill is not the same as 10 calories of sugar. What really matters is whether a substance triggers the signals that end your fasted state. And there are two main switches we need to understand. The first switch is your insulin response. Think of insulin as your body's storage signal. When insulin levels rise, your body shifts from burning fat to storing it. When insulin stays low, which happens during fasting, fat flows out of your cells and gets used for energy. This is one of the main reasons people fast for weight loss. So the question becomes, do pills trigger insulin? Most don't, but some do. The second switch is something called mTOR. This stands for mechanistic target of rapamycin, but you don't need to remember that name. What you need to know is this. mTOR acts like a growth versus cleanup switch inside your cells. When mTOR is active, your cells focus on building. They make new proteins. They grow. They repair and expand. When mTOR is quiet, which happens during fasting, your cells focus on cleaning. They remove damaged parts. They recycle old proteins. They clear out cellular debris. This cleaning process has a name. It's called autophagy. And in 2016, Japanese scientist Yoshinori Ohsumi won the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering how autophagy works. His research showed that when cells are deprived of nutrients, they activate this remarkable self-cleaning system. Damaged mitochondria get recycled. Misfolded proteins get broken down. It's like a deep clean for every cell in your body. This is why autophagy has been linked to longevity, reduced inflammation, and lower risk of diseases like Alzheimer's and cancer. And this is what many people are trying to protect when they fast. So the question becomes, do pills activate mTOR? Some do, most don't. Now, why does your body have these switches in the first place? The answer lies in millions of years of evolution. Our ancestors didn't have refrigerators. They didn't have supermarkets. They lived through unpredictable cycles of feast and famine. When food was abundant, their bodies switched to building mode. Store energy, build muscle, grow. When food was scarce, their bodies switched to cleanup mode. Recycle damaged cells, conserve energy, survive until the next meal. mTOR and autophagy are ancient software, still running in your body today. Every pill you take, every supplement you swallow sends a signal to this system. The question is, what signal are you sending? Let's look at how different nutrients affect these two switches. Carbohydrates are the strongest insulin trigger. Even small amounts can spike your blood sugar, which causes insulin to rise. This is why pills with sugar coatings or sweetened supplements matter more than you might think. Protein, especially amino acids, has a moderate effect on insulin, but a strong effect on mTOR. Protein tells your body that nutrients are available, that it's time to build rather than clean. One amino acid in particular, called leucine, is extremely powerful at activating mTOR. This becomes important when we talk about supplements later. Fat has the smallest impact. Pure fats cause minimal insulin response and minimal mTOR activation. This is why pure fish oil or MCT oil have less effect on your fasted state than protein or carbs. But they still contain calories, so technically they do break a strict fast. Now comes the central question. Where do medications fit into this picture? Do they trigger insulin? Do they activate mTOR? Let's find out. The good news is that most standard medications fall into the safe category. They have negligible impact on your fasted state. Let's start with water-soluble vitamins like B complex and vitamin C. In their pure form, these have 0 calories. They don't trigger an insulin response. They don't activate mTOR. You can take them during your fasting window without any concern. One note though, some people feel nauseous taking B vitamins on an empty stomach. If that's you, it's perfectly fine to take them with food instead. Thyroid medications like levothyroxine or Synthroid are actually better absorbed on an empty stomach. They contain no calories and cause no insulin spike. Many doctors specifically recommend taking these 30 to 60 minutes before eating. They're completely fasting friendly. Blood pressure medications, including ACE inhibitors, ARBs and beta blockers, come in standard tablet or capsule form with negligible calories. They don't cause significant insulin or mTOR response. They're safe during fasting. And this is important. Never skip these medications for the sake of fasting. Blood pressure control is essential for your health. Statins and cholesterol medications have no impact on fasting metabolism. Some work better when taken at night, but that's unrelated to fasting. Continue taking them as prescribed. Antidepressants and anti-anxiety medications are generally fasting neutral. Follow your prescribed timing. Mental health management is always the priority. Now let's talk about medications that require more careful consideration. Insulin and diabetes medications directly affect blood sugar, which is the core of what fasting influences. If you take insulin sulfonylureas or other glucose-lowering medications, fasting becomes more complex. These medications can cause hypoglycemia or dangerously low blood sugar if you don't eat. This is critical. If you have diabetes and want to try fasting, you must work closely with your doctor. Never adjust insulin doses on your own. Steroid hormones like prednisone or cortisone can raise blood sugar and may affect insulin sensitivity. If you're prescribed, these take them as directed, but be aware they might impact your fasting results. Your doctor's guidance is essential here. Certain antibiotics require food for proper absorption or can cause severe nausea on an empty stomach. If the label says, "Take with food," follow that instruction. Completing your antibiotic course is far more important than maintaining your fast. Here's something most people never consider. It's not just the active ingredient in a pill, it's also what the pill is made with. Many medications contain small amounts of fillers, binders, and coatings. Gelatin capsules contain trace calories, typically 1 to 2 per capsule. Sugar coatings might add a few more. Some pills contain small amounts of starch or lactose. Should you worry about this? Generally, no. These amounts are so minimal that they have negligible metabolic impact. There's a commonly cited threshold of about 50 calories. Below this level, most people stay in a fasted state with minimal disruption to autophagy. The key is to focus on the active ingredient's effect, not the tiny amount of filler material. Now let's shift to supplements. This is where things get more interesting. Some supplements are completely safe during fasting. Electrolytes, including sodium, potassium, and magnesium, contain 0 calories. They don't trigger insulin. They don't activate mTOR. In fact, electrolytes are actually recommended during fasting to prevent dehydration and muscle cramps. Plain salt, potassium chloride, magnesium citrate, all safe, all helpful. Pure creatine monohydrate is calorie-free and doesn't cause an insulin response in its pure form. But be careful here. Many commercial creatine products contain added sugars or dextrose to help absorption. Check the label. Probiotics typically contain no digestible calories and don't trigger insulin or mTOR. They're safe during fasting. Now here's an important distinction many people miss. Vitamins fall into two completely different categories based on how they're absorbed. Water-soluble vitamins like vitamin C and B complex dissolve in water and are absorbed directly. They don't need food. They don't need fat. You can take them during your fast without any issue. Fat-soluble vitamins are a different story. These include vitamins A, D, and K. They need dietary fat to be properly absorbed. If you take vitamin D on an empty stomach, your body only absorbs a small fraction of it. The rest gets wasted. So while these vitamins don't technically break your fast, you should take them with a meal that contains fat for maximum benefit. Otherwise, you're just throwing money away. Now let's talk about supplements that will likely break your fast. Branched-chain amino acids, commonly called BCAAs, are a popular choice for people who exercise while fasting. But here's what most people don't realize. BCAAs, especially leucine, directly activate mTOR. Remember what happens when mTOR turns on autophagy, turns off. Even though BCAAs have minimal calories, they shut down the cellular cleanup that you're fasting for. If autophagy is your goal, avoid BCAAs during your fasting window. Protein powders are obvious. They contain protein and calories. They trigger a strong insulin response. They strongly activate mTOR. Save these for your eating window. Gummy vitamins are a hidden problem. They taste good because they contain sugar, typically 2 to 8 grams per serving. That sugar triggers an insulin response. Gummy vitamins will break your fast. Switch to regular capsules or tablets if you want to take vitamins while fasting. Fish oil and omega-3 capsules contain about 5 to 10 calories of fat per capsule. They have minimal impact on insulin and mTOR. For a strict autophagy-focused fast, you should probably save them for your eating window. But for general intermittent fasting focused on weight loss, they probably won't derail your results. Now I want to ask you something. What surprised you more? The fact that BCAAs actually stop autophagy, or that sweeteners might trigger insulin even with 0 calories? Drop your answer in the comments. I'm curious to know. Speaking of sweeteners, let's address this question directly. When you taste something sweet, even if it has 0 calories, your brain anticipates sugar. This is called the cephalic phase, insulin response. Your body prepares for incoming carbohydrates by releasing a small amount of insulin. The sugar never comes, but the insulin was already released. Research on this is mixed. Some studies show significant effects. Others show minimal impact. The response seems to vary between individuals and between different sweeteners. Stevia and monk fruit appear to have less impact than sucralose or aspartame. The practical advice is this. When possible, choose unflavored supplements during your fasting window. If you use sweetened supplements, pay attention to how your body responds. Now let's address the most debated topic in fasting circles: collagen. Some experts say collagen is fine during fasting. Here's their reasoning. Collagen is low in leucine, the amino acid that most strongly activates mTOR. Some research suggests minimal autophagy disruption from collagen compared to other proteins. And for people doing extended fasts, collagen might help preserve muscle. Other experts say collagen breaks your fast. Their reasoning is also sound. Collagen is still protein. It still contains calories. It still contains amino acids that trigger some insulin response. For strict autophagy goals, it introduces unnecessary risk. So where does the truth lie? If your primary goal is weight loss and metabolic health, small amounts of collagen probably won't derail your progress. If your goal is maximum autophagy and cellular cleanup, it's safer to save collagen for your eating window. And if you're genuinely unsure, you can test your own response, which I'll explain in a moment. Let's move to practical guidance. What should you actually do with all this information? First, and most important, your prescribed medications are not negotiable. If you take medications for diabetes, heart disease, thyroid conditions, mental health, or any chronic illness, keep taking them exactly as prescribed. The benefits of your medications far outweigh any theoretical fasting optimization. Fasting is a tool for health. It should never compromise your medical treatment. That said, here are some strategies for taking medications during your fast. Consider timing. If a medication can be taken at any time of day, consider taking it near the end of your fast or at the start of your eating window. This way, if it does have any impact, you're already transitioning out of your fasted state. But only adjust timing if your doctor confirms it's safe. For medications that require food, take them with your first meal. Don't compromise medication effectiveness for fasting. Proper absorption matters. Water is always allowed. Take all pills with plain water. Water never breaks a fast, and staying well hydrated is essential, especially when fasting. There are some warning signs you need to know about. If you experience severe dizziness lasting more than 30 minutes, stop fasting and eat something. If you feel your heart racing or pounding abnormally, that's your body telling you something's wrong. Confusion, difficulty concentrating, feeling unusually foggy. These are signals to pay attention to. Shaking hands, sudden sweating, unusual irritability. These are classic signs of low blood sugar. Don't try to push through these symptoms. Break your fast. Eat something. And if symptoms continue, consult your doctor. Being tough doesn't mean ignoring your body's distress signals. If you want to know for certain how a specific supplement affects your fasted state, here's how to find out. Check your blood sugar when you're fasted before taking the supplement. Take the supplement with water. Wait 30 minutes. Check your blood sugar again. If it rose significantly, more than 10 to 15 milligrams per deciliter, that supplement likely triggered an insulin response. If it stayed stable, you're probably fine. For even more detailed information, continuous glucose monitors like Freestyle Libre or Dexcom provide real-time data. You can see exactly how your body responds to any pill or supplement. It removes all the guesswork. And when in doubt, ask your doctor or pharmacist. They can review your specific medications and supplements and give you personalized advice. That always beats general rules from the internet. Let's bring everything together. Do pills really break your fast? Here's the truth. Most standard medications have no significant impact on autophagy or your fasted state. The tiny amounts of fillers or coatings in pills are negligible. What matters is the active ingredient and whether it triggers insulin or mTOR. What actually breaks a fast? Supplements with calories like protein powders and gummy vitamins. Amino acids, especially BCAAs, because they activate mTOR. Anything with sugar or significant carbohydrates. What doesn't break a fast? Most prescription medications in tablet or capsule form. Electrolytes, water-soluble vitamins in pure form, most mineral supplements. Remember the bigger picture here. Fasting is about working with your body, not against it. It's not about perfection. It's about progress. If you need to take medications, take them. If a supplement helps you feel better and complete your fast, successfully use it. The goal is sustainable health over the long term, not rigid rules that make your life miserable. Now I want to hear from you. What medications or supplements were you unsure about before this video? Did anything surprise you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you know someone who takes supplements during their fast without knowing this information, send them this video. It could completely change their results. Here's a question for discussion. Some experts say collagen is perfectly fine during fasting. Others say it definitely breaks your fast. Based on what you learned today about mTOR and amino acids, where do you stand? Comment below and tell me your reasoning. If this video helped you understand fasting better, hit that like button and subscribe. We explore the real science of fasting every week, going beyond the surface to give you information you can actually use. Next time, we're looking at what happens when you break your fast the wrong way. The refeeding mistakes that can undo all your hard work. You won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching. And remember, your body already knows how to heal itself. Fasting just gives it the space to do what it does best. What happens to cancer cells when you don't eat for a whole day? Sounds like a strange question, but science has discovered something remarkable about what goes on inside your body when food stops coming in. Your healthy cells adapt. Your immune system sharpens. And cancer cells, they start to struggle. Right now inside your body, there's a constant battle happening. Your immune system is identifying and destroying abnormal cells before they can become dangerous. Most of the time, you never even notice. But what if you could tip the scales in your favor? What if something as simple as not eating for 24 hours could give your body an advantage in this fight? Today, we're going inside the 24-hour fast to see exactly what happens hour by hour to the cells that could one day threaten your life. And what you learn might change how you think about the simplest thing you do every day: eating. But before we dive in, this is educational content, not medical advice. If you're considering fasting, talk to your doctor first, especially if you have any health conditions. Now, to understand why fasting affects cancer cells differently than normal cells, we need to go back almost 100 years to a German scientist named Otto Warburg, and a discovery that would eventually change how we understand cancer itself. This discovery sat largely ignored for decades, but in recent years, it has become the foundation of modern cancer metabolism research. And once you understand it, everything about fasting and cancer will make perfect sense. In 1924, Warburg was observing cancer cells in his laboratory, and he noticed something strange. These cells were consuming glucose in a completely different way than normal cells. At the time, scientists believed cancer cells were simply normal cells that had lost control of their growth. But Warburg saw something deeper, something fundamentally different about how these cells generated energy. Here's what happens in a healthy cell. When glucose enters, it goes through a process called the TCA cycle, also known as the Krebs cycle. This process uses oxygen to completely burn glucose, extracting maximum energy. From a single glucose molecule, a healthy cell produces 32 to 34 units of energy, called ATP. It's efficient. It's thorough. It extracts nearly everything useful from that glucose molecule. But cancer cells, they do something bizarre. They convert glucose directly into lactate, even when there's plenty of oxygen available. This process only produces 2 ATP per glucose molecule. That's 15 times less efficient than what healthy cells do. For decades, scientists were puzzled. Why would cancer cells choose such a wasteful path? It seemed to make no evolutionary sense. If cancer cells are competing for resources, why would they use resources so inefficiently? The answer, it turns out, is speed. The flow of glucose to lactate is nearly 100 times faster than going through the full TCA cycle. Cancer doesn't care about efficiency. Cancer cares about growing fast. It needs to divide rapidly, spread quickly, and outcompete the body's defenses. And to maintain this rapid growth, cancer cells need one thing above all else: a constant supply of glucose. Non-stop, without pause, without interruption. This creates a dependency, an addiction really. Cancer cells become so reliant on this fast glucose pathway that they lose the ability to use other fuel sources. They've traded flexibility for speed, and that trade-off comes with a fatal weakness. Think of it this way. Cancer cells are like a high-performance sports car that only runs on premium gasoline. Fast, powerful, but with only one fuel option. Your healthy cells are like hybrid vehicles. They can run on gasoline, electricity, or even diesel. When the gas station closes, the hybrid switches to electric mode and keeps moving. But the sports car, it stops. The engine dies. This isn't just theory. This principle is used in medicine every single day. PT scans, one of the most common tools for detecting cancer, work exactly on this principle. Doctors inject radioactive glucose into your body. Cancer cells hungry for glucose gobble it up faster than anything else. And they light up on the scan. The Warburg effect isn't just a laboratory observation, it's a diagnostic tool. And here's why this matters for fasting. Cancer cells cannot switch to alternative fuel sources the way healthy cells can. When you fast, glucose levels drop and ketones rise. Your healthy cells adapt, switching smoothly to ketone metabolism. But cancer cells are trapped. They're still waiting for glucose that isn't coming. This is their Achilles heel. And when you understand this, everything about fasting and cancer starts to make sense. So let's walk through what actually happens inside your body during a 24-hour fast, hour by hour, starting from your last meal. During the first 4 hours after eating, your body is in what scientists call the fed state. Insulin spikes to help shuttle glucose into your cells. Blood sugar is high. And IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor, a hormone that promotes cell growth, is also elevated. This is important to understand. IGF-1 doesn't just promote growth of healthy cells. It promotes growth of all cells, including precancerous ones. Higher IGF-1 levels have been associated with increased cancer risk in multiple studies. When you eat, especially when you eat frequently, you keep IGF-1 elevated. Your body is in building and storage mode. Every cell is being nourished, including cells that perhaps shouldn't be nourished. This is the environment cancer cells love. Glucose is abundant. Growth signals are strong. If there are any precancerous cells lurking in your body, they're being well fed right now. The sports car has a full tank. You feel satisfied, maybe a little sleepy after a big meal. Energy stable. Nothing unusual from your perspective. But here's the thing. If you eat continuously every few hours, putting food in, you keep your body permanently in this state. Growth signals never turn off. Cancer cells never run low on fuel. Some researchers believe this constant fed state, this never-ending supply of glucose and growth signals, may be one reason cancer rates have increased in modern societies where food is always available. What happens when you stop eating? Between hours 4 and 12, things begin to shift. Insulin starts dropping. Your liver begins releasing glycogen, its stored form of glucose, to keep blood sugar stable. IGF-1 also starts declining. Your body is transitioning from building mode to maintenance mode. This is the transition phase. Nothing dramatic yet, but the foundation is being laid. At a molecular level, sensors inside your cells are detecting the change in nutrient availability. A protein called AMPK, often called the master metabolic regulator, begins activating. AMPK is like an alarm system that detects low energy states and starts making adjustments. It tells cells to stop growing and start conserving. But cancer cells, with their mutated signaling pathways, often can't respond properly to these signals. Cancer cells begin to sense the change. Glucose is still available, but not as abundant as before. The sports car glances at its fuel gauge. The needle is starting to move toward empty. Not an emergency yet, but there are signs. You might start feeling mild hunger at this stage, especially if you're used to snacking frequently. Some people feel irritable or have trouble concentrating. This is normal. Your body is adjusting. These feelings typically pass. And this is just the beginning. Most people stop here. They feel hungry and eat. But if you continue past hour 12, something interesting starts to happen. Between hours 12 and 17, this is where everything begins to change. This is the inflection point. Liver glycogen is running out. Your liver starts producing ketones, an alternative fuel source made from fat. Insulin is now low. IGF-1 has dropped significantly. And a process called autophagy begins ramping up. Autophagy, from the Greek words meaning self-eating. This is when your cells start cleaning up and recycling old damaged components. In 2016, Japanese scientist Yoshinori Osumi was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for discovering the mechanisms of autophagy. He found that this isn't just cellular housekeeping, it's a sophisticated defense system. Working with baker's yeast in the early 1990s, Osumi identified 15 essential genes that control this recycling process. He showed that when cells are starved of nutrients, these genes activate a remarkable cleanup operation. His breakthrough revealed that autophagy can identify and eliminate damaged proteins malfunctioning mitochondria and, most importantly, precancerous components. Think about what this means. Your cells have a built-in quality control system that specifically targets damaged dysfunctional parts. Parts that, if left alone, could eventually become cancerous. And this system activates when you stop eating. Your cells literally start eating the parts of themselves that could become dangerous. It's like having a Marie Kondo inside every cell, identifying what sparks joy and recycling what doesn't. Except instead of cluttered closets, it's identifying misfolded proteins and damaged DNA that could lead to cancer. Meanwhile, your healthy cells are beginning to switch to ketone fuel. They're adapting seamlessly. But cancer cells, because of the Warburg effect, cannot make this switch. They're still waiting for glucose. Their metabolic machinery is locked into glucose-only mode. The sports car is now running low on fuel and there's no gas station in sight. Some people feel stronger hunger at this stage, but many report the opposite. Hunger starts fading, replaced by clearer focus. If you experience severe dizziness or rapid heartbeat, stop and eat something light. Listen to your body. Now we enter the final stretch. Hours 17 to 24. This is where the real transformation happens. Autophagy is now in full swing. Your cells are actively cleaning and recycling. IGF-1 can drop by up to 70% during extended fasts. Research from Professor Walter Longo's lab at USC showed that a 72-hour fast reduced IGF-1 by 70% and increased its inhibitor, IGF-PP1, by 11-fold. Even at 24 hours, significant changes are happening, and a phenomenon called differential stress resistance reaches its peak. This is the breakthrough discovery of Professor Walter Longo at the University of Southern California. When you fast, healthy cells enter a protected state. They reduce activity, increase defenses, and essentially hunker down to wait out the shortage. They activate ancient survival pathways that have been conserved through millions of years of evolution. But cancer cells cannot do this. Here's why. Cancer cells have mutations in genes like RAS-AKT and mTOR. These are growth signaling pathways that are permanently stuck in the on position. It's like having a gas pedal that's jammed to the floor. They can't slow down. They can't switch to conservation mode. Their own mutations, the same mutations that allow them to grow uncontrollably, prevent them from adapting to nutrient scarcity. Professor Longo describes it like the difference between bears and hummingbirds. Bears can hibernate when food is scarce. They slow their metabolism, conserve energy, and wait for better times. Hummingbirds cannot. They need to eat constantly or they die. Their high-speed metabolism has no off switch. Cancer cells are like hummingbirds. They have no pause button. They cannot slow down. They cannot enter protection mode. And in a fasted state, this becomes their downfall. The sports car has now run completely out of fuel. The engine is dead. Meanwhile, your hybrid, your healthy cells is running smoothly on electric power, on ketones. Cancer cells are trapped, exposed, and vulnerable. And your newly activated autophagy system is actively seeking out damaged cells to eliminate. Many people report a feeling of mental clarity at this stage, sharp focus, stable mood. Some describe it as a sense of calm alertness they've never experienced before. This is ketones feeding your brain. Your body has fully adapted. You're no longer hungry. You're in a metabolic state that your ancestors experienced regularly between successful hunts. A state your body was designed for. But there's another piece to this puzzle: your immune system. In 2024, researchers at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center discovered something remarkable. They had mice fast for 24 hours twice a week, and they tracked what happened to NK cells, natural killer cells. These are your immune system's special forces, specialized in destroying cancer cells and virus-infected cells without needing prior exposure to them. Unlike T cells, which need to be trained to recognize specific threats, NK cells can identify and attack abnormal cells immediately. They're your first line of defense. And what the researchers found was surprising. During fasting, NK cells migrated to the bone marrow, where they were exposed to high levels of a signaling protein called interleukin-12. This trained them to produce more interferon gamma, a cytokine crucial for killing tumors. The NK cells were essentially being reprogrammed to become more effective cancer killers. At the same time, other NK cells learned to use fatty acids as fuel instead of glucose. They underwent what the researchers called metabolic reprogramming. Why does this matter? The environment around tumors is hostile to immune cells. Tumors are greedy. They consume all the glucose in their vicinity, creating a landscape rich in lipids but starved of the fuel most immune cells need. Normal NK cells would die in this environment. They'd enter the tumor, run out of energy, and fail. But NK cells trained through fasting can survive and fight. They've learned to burn fat for fuel, the very fuel that's abundant in tumor environments. It's like sending your immune system's soldiers to boot camp teaching them to survive in exactly the harsh conditions where they need to operate. The researchers noted that blood tests in humans showed similar redistribution of NK cells during fasting, suggesting this mechanism may also apply to people. Now, something important I need to say. If you or someone you love is currently fighting cancer, or if your body is weakened for any reason, please listen carefully to this part. While the science shows promise, cancer patients often already suffer from malnutrition. The disease itself and the treatments used to fight it can drain the body's resources. Your body needs protein and energy to maintain muscle, support your immune system, and recover from treatment. Chemotherapy and radiation demand that your body has enough strength to repair itself. Fasting done incorrectly can worsen a condition called cachexia, the severe muscle wasting that affects many cancer patients. This is a serious concern. Losing muscle mass can weaken your immune system further and reduce your ability to tolerate treatment. Some medications need to be taken with food, and the way your body processes drugs can be affected by fasting. Timing matters when it comes to cancer treatment, and adding fasting without guidance could interfere with your protocol. It's also important to understand that while the research is exciting, large-scale clinical trials in humans are still ongoing. Professor Longo's work is promising, but we're still learning exactly how, when, and for whom fasting may be beneficial as part of cancer treatment. If you're undergoing cancer treatment, always talk to your oncologist before trying any fasting regimen. Ask about the fasting mimicking diet. The protocol. Professor Longo developed specifically as a safer alternative that provides some nutrients while still triggering many of the beneficial fasting responses. Some hospitals are conducting clinical trials. You might ask your doctor about opportunities to participate in supervised research. The goal is to support treatment, not replace it. And if your body is weak right now, prioritize recovery first. High-quality nutrition might be more important than restricting food at this stage. Work with your medical team to find the right approach for your specific situation. So after all this science, what's the real takeaway? Perhaps it's realizing that your body is smarter than you thought. It evolved over millions of years with sophisticated protection mechanisms. Fasting isn't starving your body. It's activating survival programs that have been encoded in your DNA since the dawn of humanity. Your healthy cells know how to adapt. Your immune system can be trained, and cancer cells have a fatal weakness, an addiction to glucose that becomes their downfall when fuel runs short. Now, I want to hear from you. Some doctors say never fast beyond 16 hours. Others point to research showing benefits at 24, 48, even 72 hours. Where do you draw the line? I'm genuinely curious what you think. Drop your opinion in the comments. And if you've ever tried fasting longer than 16 hours, how did you feel at hour 17? That's the inflection point where autophagy really kicks in. Share your experience below. If this video changed how you think about eating and health, share it with someone you care about, especially if they're concerned about cancer prevention. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. In the next video, we're diving into another question. What happens if you break your fast the wrong way? The mistake almost nobody talks about. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. You wake up in the morning. Before your feet even touch the floor, you already feel it. That stiffness in your knees, that dull ache in your lower back. Maybe your hips feel like they've rusted overnight. You're not alone. Millions of people around the world start their day exactly like this, reaching for painkillers before reaching for breakfast. Most people assume this is just part of getting older. Wear and tear, cartilage breaking down. Nothing you can do about it except manage the symptoms and hope for the best. But what if that's not the whole story? What if a significant part of your joint pain has nothing to do with your joints themselves and everything to do with inflammation running through your entire body? And what if one of the most powerful ways to address this inflammation doesn't come from a pill or a surgery, but from something much simpler, not eating? Yes, fasting. The simple act of giving your digestive system a break triggers a cascade of biological changes that can directly reduce joint pain. And in this video, we're going to break down exactly how this works, step by step, so you understand what's really happening inside your body. Quick note before we dive in. This is educational content, not medical advice. If you have chronic health conditions, please talk to your doctor before making any changes. All right, let's get into the science. Here's something most people don't realize. When your joints hurt, the problem often isn't starting in your joints. It's starting somewhere else entirely. Think about what chronic inflammation actually means. Your immune system is designed to respond to injuries and infections. When you cut your finger, inflammation rushes in to help heal the wound. When you catch a cold, inflammation helps fight off the virus. This is acute inflammation and it's healthy. It does its job and then goes away. But chronic inflammation is different. This is when your immune system gets stuck in the on position. It keeps firing inflammatory signals even when there's no real threat to fight. And these signals don't just stay in one place. They travel through your bloodstream and affect your entire body, including your joints. Now here's where your diet comes in. Every time you eat, your body goes through a complex process of digestion and metabolism. Your gut has to break down food, absorb nutrients, and deal with whatever else comes along with that meal. When you eat constantly throughout the day, your digestive system never gets a break. It's always working. And here's the problem. Modern diets, especially those high in processed foods and sugars, can damage the lining of your gut over time. Your gut has a protective barrier that's supposed to keep certain things inside your intestines and out of your bloodstream. But when this barrier gets damaged, something called intestinal permeability increases. Some people call this leaky gut. When your gut barrier is compromised, bacterial components called lipopolysaccharides, or LPS for short, can leak into your bloodstream. LPS is found on the surface of certain bacteria in your gut. Normally, it stays where it belongs. But when it enters your bloodstream, your immune system treats it as a threat and launches an inflammatory response. And here's the connection to your joints. This inflammatory response doesn't just happen locally. It spreads throughout your body. The same inflammatory chemicals that get triggered by LPS can end up affecting your joint tissues, contributing to pain, stiffness, and degradation over time. This is why some people with chronic joint pain also have digestive issues. It's not a coincidence. The gut and the joints are connected through the immune system. So what does fasting have to do with all this? When you stop eating, something remarkable happens. Your digestive system finally gets a chance to rest and repair. The constant assault on your gut barrier slows down, and without new food coming in, the amount of LPS leaking into your bloodstream decreases. But that's just the beginning of what fasting does. Let's talk about what actually happens in your body when you fast hour by hour. Because fasting isn't just about eating fewer calories. It triggers specific metabolic switches that have profound effects on inflammation. In the first 12 hours after your last meal, your body is still processing whatever you ate. Insulin levels start to drop as your blood sugar stabilizes. Your digestive system begins to quiet down. Nothing dramatic yet, but the stage is being set. Between 12 and 18 hours, things start to change more noticeably. Your body has used up most of the glucose stored in your liver. Now it needs to find another fuel source. So your liver starts doing something interesting. It begins converting fatty acids into molecules called ketones. Ketones are often talked about in the context of weight loss, but their role goes far beyond that. They're actually a highly efficient fuel source that your brain and body can use when glucose isn't available. Our ancestors relied on ketones during periods when food was scarce. It's a survival mechanism that's been built into our biology for thousands of years. Between 18 and 24 hours, ketone levels rise significantly. One ketone in particular, called beta-hydroxybutyrate, or BHB, becomes increasingly abundant in your bloodstream. And this is where things get really interesting for joint pain. You see, BHB isn't just fuel. It also has powerful anti-inflammatory effects. Inside your cells, there's a component called the NLRP3 inflammasome. Think of it as a sensor that detects danger signals and triggers inflammation in response. In people with chronic inflammation, this sensor can become overactive. It keeps triggering inflammatory responses even when there's no real danger. Scientists discovered something remarkable. BHB, the ketone your body produces during fasting, can actually block the NLRP3 inflammasome. This research was published in Nature Medicine and has been confirmed by multiple studies since then. When BHB levels rise during fasting, it helps calm down this overactive inflammatory sensor. This is not theory. This is documented biology. But there's more. A study published in Cell Metabolism found that fasting also affects the immune cells in your blood. Specifically, it reduces the number and activity of certain white blood cells called monocytes. These are like first responders of your immune system. In people with chronic inflammation, monocytes can be overactive, constantly triggering inflammatory cascades. The study showed that within just 19 to 20 hours of fasting, the number of these circulating monocytes decreased significantly. Fewer overactive immune cells means less inflammatory signaling throughout your body, including in your joints. The researchers also found that fasting reduced something called CD14 and CD16, which are markers on monocytes that determine how strongly they react to inflammatory triggers like LPS. When these markers are reduced, your immune cells are less likely to overreact to the bacterial components that may have leaked from your gut. So let's put this together. When you fast, your gut gets a chance to heal, reducing LPS leakage. At the same time, your body produces ketones like BHB that block inflammatory sensors. And the immune cells in your blood become less reactive and numerous. It's a multi-pronged approach to reducing inflammation, all happening naturally without any medication. Now let's go deeper into another mechanism that's directly relevant to joint health. This one involves a process called autophagy. Autophagy literally means self-eating, but it's not as scary as it sounds. It's actually one of the most important maintenance processes in your body. Here's what happens. Your cells accumulate damaged parts over time. Broken proteins, malfunctioning mitochondria, cellular debris. This damaged material doesn't just sit there harmlessly. It can trigger inflammation and interfere with normal cell function. Autophagy is the process by which your cells identify this damaged material, break it down, and recycle the components. Think of it as a deep cleaning process at the cellular level. Out with the old damaged parts. In with the building blocks for new healthy components. In 2016, Japanese scientist Yoshinori Osumi won the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine for his discoveries about the mechanisms of autophagy. He spent decades studying how cells clean themselves, primarily using yeast as a model. His work revealed the genes and processes that control autophagy and showed that this same machinery exists in human cells. What does this have to do with your joints? Your joint cartilage is made up of specialized cells called chondrocytes. These cells are responsible for maintaining the cartilage matrix, the smooth cushioning surface that allows your joints to move without friction. Over time, chondrocytes accumulate damage just like any other cell. And when they do, they don't function as well. They produce inflammatory chemicals. They fail to maintain the cartilage properly. This contributes to the progression of conditions like osteoarthritis. Recent research from 2024 published in the Journal of Molecular Medicine has shown that autophagy plays a crucial role in chondrocyte health. When autophagy is functioning properly, it helps remove damaged components from these cartilage cells, allowing them to work better and produce fewer inflammatory signals. When autophagy is impaired, damage accumulates and cartilage degeneration accelerates. Here's where fasting comes back into the picture. Fasting is one of the most potent activators of autophagy. When your body isn't receiving food, it shifts into a conservation and repair mode. Part of this includes ramping up the cellular cleaning process. A study published in 2024 in Aging Cell found something remarkable. Beta-hydroxybutyrate, the same ketone we discussed earlier, directly enhances a specific type of autophagy in chondrocytes called mitophagy. This is the process of cleaning out damaged mitochondria, the energy-producing parts of your cells. The study showed that BHB reduced cartilage degeneration in an osteoarthritis model through this mechanism. So the ketones your body produces during fasting aren't just reducing inflammation through the NLRP3 pathway. They're also directly supporting the cellular cleanup process in your joint cartilage. This explains why the benefits of fasting for joint pain aren't just about weight loss. Yes, losing weight reduces mechanical stress on your joints. But the metabolic changes that happen during fasting, the production of ketones, the activation of autophagy, the reduction of inflammatory signaling, these have direct effects on joint health at the cellular level. Let's look at what the clinical research shows when actual patients try fasting for joint problems. In Germany, researchers conducted a study on 125 patients with osteoarthritis of the knee or hip. These patients underwent 5 to 10 days of modified fasting as part of an inpatient treatment program. The researchers measured pain levels, joint stiffness, and physical function before, during, and after the fasting period. The results were striking. Patients reported significant reductions in pain scores. Joint stiffness decreased. Physical function improved. And here's the remarkable part. These benefits lasted up to 1 year after the fasting intervention. This wasn't just temporary relief that disappeared when they started eating again. The improvements persisted. The researchers identified 3 main mechanisms behind these benefits. First, the anti-inflammatory effects we've discussed. Second, changes in the gut microbiome that favored less inflammatory bacterial populations. And third, reduced metabolic stress on the body overall. Research on rheumatoid arthritis tells a similar story. Studies on RA patients who underwent 7 or more days of fasting showed significant reductions in joint swelling and tenderness. Blood tests revealed measurable decreases in inflammatory markers like IL-6 and C-reactive protein. These are the same markers that doctors use to assess arthritis severity. In one controlled trial, 53 rheumatoid arthritis patients were divided into a fasting group and a control group. The fasting group ate nothing for 7 to 10 days, then followed a vegetarian diet afterward. After 4 weeks, the fasting group showed significant improvements in the number of tender and swollen joints, pain scores, and morning stiffness, along with reductions in inflammatory blood markers. Now, I want to be clear about something. This research doesn't mean fasting is a miracle cure for arthritis. Joint conditions are complex and have multiple causes. But the evidence is compelling that fasting can be a powerful tool for reducing inflammation and supporting joint health. Why would our bodies have this capability built in? Think about it from an evolutionary perspective. Our ancestors didn't have constant access to food. There were periods of feast and periods of famine. Those who survived were the ones whose bodies could adapt to these fluctuations. When food was scarce, our ancestors needed to stay mobile enough to find more food. Having joints that seized up with inflammation during fasting would have been a severe disadvantage. So our bodies evolved mechanisms to actually reduce inflammation during fasting, helping maintain mobility when we needed it most. The ketones that fuel your brain during fasting also protected your joints. The autophagy that cleaned damaged cells also maintained your cartilage. These weren't separate systems. They were integrated survival mechanisms. The problem is that modern life has disrupted these ancient rhythms. We eat constantly. Our bodies never enter the fasted state long enough to activate these protective mechanisms. And we pay the price in chronic inflammation, including in our joints. So how can you apply this knowledge practically? First, understand that you don't need to do extreme extended fasts to see benefits. The metabolic changes begin within 12 to 18 hours of your last meal. Many people find that simply extending their overnight fast eating dinner earlier and breakfast later is enough to start activating these pathways. Intermittent fasting, where you eat within a limited window each day, is one approach. Some people eat within an 8-hour window and fast for 16 hours. Others go longer. The key is consistency and finding what works for your body and lifestyle. If you're new to fasting, start gradually. Don't jump into extended fasts immediately. Begin by pushing breakfast back an hour or two. See how you feel. Gradually extend your fasting window as your body adapts. During your eating windows, what you eat matters too. Foods that promote inflammation like processed foods, refined sugars, and excessive omega-6 oils can undermine the benefits you're getting from fasting. Focus on whole foods, vegetables, healthy fats, and quality proteins. Support your gut health with fiber and fermented foods. Stay hydrated during fasting periods. Water, black coffee, and plain tea are generally fine. If you're doing longer fasts, pay attention to electrolytes. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium become important when you're not getting them from food. Now let's talk about who should be cautious. Fasting isn't appropriate for everyone. Pregnant or breastfeeding women should not fast. People with a history of eating disorders should approach fasting very carefully, if at all, and only with professional guidance. Those on diabetes medications, especially insulin, need to work with their doctors because fasting can dramatically affect blood sugar levels. People with chronic kidney disease, those who are underweight, and anyone under 18 should also be cautious. And here are the warning signs to watch for. If you experience severe dizziness that doesn't improve with water and a bit of salt, stop. Heart palpitations or irregular heartbeat are red flags. Confusion, difficulty thinking clearly, or fainting are signs your body is struggling. If any of these persist for more than 30 minutes after you've tried addressing them, stop the fast and consult a healthcare professional. Fasting should feel challenging but manageable. It shouldn't feel dangerous. Listen to your body. So here's what we've learned. Joint pain often isn't just about your joints. Chronic inflammation driven by modern diets and constant eating plays a significant role. Your gut health is connected to your joint health through inflammatory pathways. Fasting triggers multiple mechanisms that address this inflammation. It gives your gut a chance to heal. It produces ketones that block inflammatory sensors in your cells. It reduces the number and reactivity of inflammatory immune cells. And it activates autophagy, the cellular cleanup process that helps maintain healthy cartilage. Real clinical research shows measurable improvements in pain stiffness and joint function in people who fast. And these benefits can persist long after the fasting period ends. This isn't about punishing your body or extreme deprivation. It's about working with your biology, not against it. Your body already knows how to reduce inflammation and repair itself. Fasting is simply one way to give it the opportunity to do what it's designed to do. I want to hear from you. Did you know there was a connection between fasting and joint pain before watching this? Drop a comment below. If you knew about this, right? Yes. If this is new to you, right, mind blown. And if you've already tried fasting and noticed changes in your joint pain, share your experience. Your story might help someone else who's struggling. If you know someone who wakes up every morning with stiff, aching joints, someone who's tired of relying on painkillers, share this video with them. They might find exactly what they've been looking for. Some doctors still say fasting is too extreme for joint pain relief. Others point to research showing it can work faster than some medications. Where do you stand? Let's discuss in the comments. If you want to understand more about how fasting affects your entire body, subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're going to keep exploring the science behind these ancient practices and what they mean for modern health. Until then, take care of your body. It's more capable than you might realize. Sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't something you add to your life. It's something you take away. You drink a cup of black coffee in the morning while fasting. One person says it's fine. Another says you just ruined everything. So who's right? The truth is, both of them could be correct. Because what breaks your fast depends entirely on why you're fasting in the first place. And once you understand what's actually happening inside your body, you'll never be confused again. There's so much conflicting advice out there about fasting. One expert says coffee is perfectly fine. Another says it destroys all your progress. Someone tells you a little cream won't hurt. Someone else says even that tiny amount ruins everything you've worked for. It's frustrating and deeply confusing. But here's why the advice seems so contradictory. People are talking about completely different goals. They're measuring success by completely different standards. And once you understand this simple fact, everything starts to make sense. This is educational content, not medical advice. If you have any health conditions, please talk to your doctor before starting any fasting protocol. Now, before we dive into the details, let me give you some important context. Because understanding why your body works this way makes everything else click into place. Our ancestors didn't eat 3 meals a day, plus snacks in between. Food wasn't always available. There were periods of scarcity. Sometimes they went days without eating anything at all. But here's what's fascinating. They didn't just survive during these periods of no food. They actually functioned remarkably well. Think about it. They needed to stay mentally sharp to track animals. They needed physical energy to move and search for food. They needed strength to hunt and gather, all of this while hungry. If our ancestors became weak and foggy-headed every time food ran out, they would have died. We wouldn't be here. Over millions of years, human bodies developed sophisticated systems to handle periods without food. Not just to barely survive them, but to actually thrive during them. Our bodies learn to switch fuel sources, preserve muscle sharpen mental focus, and even clean up damaged cells during fasting. These are ancient mechanisms, refined over countless generations. coded deep in our biology. When you fast today, you're not doing something unnatural. You're waking up these ancient mechanisms. You're tapping into systems that have been perfected over millions of years of evolution. So, what are the main reasons people fast today? There are three primary goals, and each one has different rules about what breaks your fast. The first goal is fat burning. This is the most common reason people try fasting. They want to lose weight and burn stored body fat. The second goal is improving insulin sensitivity. This matters for people concerned about blood sugar control, prediabetes, or metabolic syndrome. The third goal is cellular renewal, also called autophagy. This is about deep cleaning at the cellular level. It's connected to longevity disease prevention and long-term health. Each of these goals has a different biological gatekeeper. Think of it like trying to get through different doors. Each door has a different lock. Understanding which gatekeeper you're trying to get past tells you exactly what breaks your fast and what doesn't. But before we explore each goal in detail, there's something important to address first. Fasting is a powerful tool, but it's not appropriate for everyone. If you're pregnant or breastfeeding, your body needs continuous nutrition for your baby. Fasting isn't appropriate during this time. If you have a history of eating disorders, fasting can trigger unhealthy patterns and restrictive behaviors. Please work with a healthcare professional instead. If you have insulin-dependent diabetes, fasting can cause dangerous blood sugar swings. Don't attempt it without direct medical supervision. If you have chronic kidney disease, your kidneys need consistent nutritional support. If you're underweight, your body doesn't have enough reserves to fast safely. And if you're a child or teenager, your growing body needs regular nutrition. If you fall into any of these categories, talk to a doctor before trying fasting. This isn't weakness. This is wisdom. Also know when to stop a fast early. Your body gives you signals. Learn to listen. If you experience severe dizziness that doesn't improve after drinking water and adding some salt, stop fasting and eat. If your heart starts racing or pounding abnormally, stop. If you feel genuinely confused or can't think clearly, stop. If you're nauseous or vomiting, stop. If you feel extremely weak, unable to do normal activities, stop. If any of these symptoms last more than 30 minutes after you've hydrated and added electrolytes, end your fast and eat something. Your body is communicating with you. Listen to it. Now let's explore the first and most common goal, fat burning. To understand what breaks a fast for fat loss, you need to understand one crucial hormone, insulin. Insulin is produced by your pancreas, a small organ behind your stomach. Every time you eat, especially carbohydrates, your pancreas releases insulin into your bloodstream. What exactly does insulin do in your body? First, it tells your cells to absorb sugar called glucose from your blood. When you eat carbohydrates, they get broken down into glucose. That glucose enters your bloodstream. Insulin is the key that unlocks your cells so they can take in this glucose and use it for energy or store it for later. But insulin does something else, something crucial for anyone trying to lose body fat. Insulin tells your fat cells to hold on to their stored fat. When insulin is circulating at high levels, your fat cells receive a clear signal. Keep the fat locked inside. Don't release it. Think of insulin as a storage hormone. When it's high, your body is in storage mode. Fat stays trapped inside your fat cells. It's locked away. When insulin drops to low levels, the opposite happens. Your fat cells get a different signal. It's okay to release the fat now, and fat starts flowing out of your cells into your bloodstream, where it can be transported to muscles and organs and burned for energy. This is why you can't efficiently burn body fat right after eating a meal. insulin is still elevated from your food. It's keeping fat locked away. It takes time for insulin to drop after eating, several hours depending on what and how much you ate. And when you fast long enough, insulin falls to low levels and stays there. Your body shifts into fat-burning mode. Stored body fat becomes your primary fuel source. This is the fundamental mechanism behind fasting for weight loss. It's not just about eating fewer calories. It's about keeping insulin low, long enough that your body can access stored fat. So what raises insulin levels? Different foods have dramatically different effects. Sugar and refined carbohydrates cause the biggest and fastest insulin spike. White bread, white rice, pasta, soda candy. These send insulin soaring within minutes. Protein also raises insulin, but less than carbohydrates. A steak will raise insulin, but not as much as a slice of cake. This point about protein will become very important when we discuss autophagy later. Pure fat raises insulin very little. Olive oil, butter, coconut oil, MCT oil. These have minimal impact on insulin levels. Now here's some encouraging news for anyone worried about small mistakes. If you add a tiny bit of cream to your coffee, maybe a teaspoon, your insulin will rise slightly. But because the amount is so small, insulin quickly drops back down. Within minutes, your body returns to fat-burning mode. This means minor mistakes don't destroy all your progress. If you accidentally eat a few almonds or add a small splash of cream to your coffee, don't panic. It's just a small blip. Keep fasting and your body will quickly return to burning fat. A teaspoon of cream in your coffee. Probably fine for fat loss purposes, but don't turn that into a full latte with 2 cups of milk. That's not a small blip. That's a small meal. That will significantly raise insulin and pause fat burning for hours. The principle is simple. Small amounts equal small blips equal quick recovery. So if your goal is burning fat, black coffee is completely fine. A little cream is probably acceptable. Unsweetened tea works well. Electrolytes like salt won't affect anything. Just avoid sugar, significant carbohydrates, and large amounts of protein. Now let's look at the second goal, improving insulin sensitivity. When you eat constantly throughout the day, your pancreas has to continuously produce insulin. You wake up and eat breakfast. Insulin rises. Mid-morning snack. More insulin. Lunch. More insulin. Afternoon snack. More insulin. Dinner. More insulin. Evening snack. More insulin. Your pancreas is working constantly. Insulin is being pumped out all day long. Over time, something problematic happens. Your cells start ignoring insulin's signal. Think about it this way. When you hear a constant sound like a fan running in the background, your brain eventually tunes it out. You stop consciously noticing it. Your cells do something similar with insulin. When insulin is constantly present at high levels day after day, cells start becoming deaf to its message. They become less responsive to insulin's signal. The result is troubling. Your pancreas has to produce even more insulin to get the same effect. This creates a dangerous cycle. More insulin leads to more resistance, which requires even more insulin, which causes even more resistance. This is called insulin resistance, and it's the first step on the path toward type 2 diabetes. When you fast, something beneficial happens. Your pancreas gets a break. No food coming in means no need to constantly pump out insulin. Insulin drops to low levels and stays there for an extended period. During this time, your insulin receptors get a chance to recover. They become sensitive again. They can hear insulin's signal clearly once more. Research on time-restricted eating shows impressive results. Studies found improvements in insulin sensitivity of 15 to 18%. And here's what's remarkable. These improvements happened even when participants didn't lose weight. The benefit wasn't just from eating fewer calories. It came from giving the pancreas and insulin receptors time to rest and reset. The rules for this goal are similar to fat burning. Both focus on keeping insulin low. Avoid anything that causes a significant insulin spike. Sugar, carbs, large amounts of protein. Coffee tea electrolytes are safe. One important note: if you're taking diabetes medication, especially insulin injections, please talk to your doctor before fasting. Fasting affects blood sugar in ways that may require adjusting your medication doses. Now, here's where things get more interesting and more confusing for many people. The first two goals, fat burning and insulin sensitivity, both focus on keeping insulin low. The rules are pretty similar. But the third goal, autophagy, works differently. It has a different gatekeeper. And this is where many people get confused about what breaks their fast. Autophagy comes from Greek. Auto means self. Phagy means eating. Autophagy literally translates to self-eating. That sounds alarming, but it's actually a beneficial process. Autophagy is when your cells break down and recycle their own old damaged components. Think about your house. Over years, furniture gets worn out. Appliances break down, clutter accumulates. If you never clean and never throw anything away, your house becomes dysfunctional. Your cells face the same challenge. Over time, cells accumulate biological garbage, proteins that have become misfolded and don't work properly, mitochondria that have become damaged, various cellular debris that builds up. If this garbage isn't cleared out, your cells work less efficiently. They become dysfunctional. This cellular dysfunction is linked to aging and many diseases. Autophagy is your cell's cleaning and recycling crew. It identifies the old damaged parts, breaks them down, and converts them into raw materials that can be used to build fresh new components. This process has been linked to longevity and healthy aging. It may help reduce the risk of age-related diseases. It's why many people are interested in fasting beyond just losing weight. Now here's the crucial difference from the first two goals. For autophagy, the gatekeeper isn't primarily insulin. It's a protein sensor called mTOR. Inside every cell in your body, there's this protein called mTOR. You can think of it as a switch between two distinct modes. When mTOR is activated and running high, your cells are in building mode. They focus on creating new proteins, growing larger, multiplying. In this mode, autophagy gets turned off. There's no time for cleaning when you're busy building. When mTOR is suppressed and running low, your cells switch to cleaning mode. Autophagy turns on. Cells start identifying and recycling old components. Here's what's absolutely crucial to understand about mTOR. mTOR is extremely sensitive to nutrients, especially protein, or more precisely, amino acids, which are the building blocks that make up protein. When amino acids are present in your bloodstream, mTOR receives the signal that nutrients are available. Time to build, and autophagy shuts down. This is the major difference from the first two goals. For fat burning and insulin sensitivity, we mainly worried about carbohydrates. But for autophagy, protein is equally concerning, maybe even more so. In 1997, a groundbreaking study was published from the University of Sydney in Australia. Dr. Suzanne Holt and Professor Jenny Brand-Miller wanted to understand exactly how different foods affect insulin in the human body. They recruited healthy volunteers, carefully fed them 38 different foods one at a time, and measured the insulin response every 15 minutes for 2 hours. What they discovered surprised the scientific community. Protein-rich foods like beefsteak and fish triggered significantly more insulin than researchers expected. Even though these foods contain very little carbohydrate, cheese and eggs also caused insulin responses. This research created what became known as the insulin index. For the first time, scientists had a detailed map of how individual foods affect insulin levels. But here's what matters most for autophagy. Protein doesn't just affect insulin. Through the amino acids it contains, protein directly activates mTOR. And when mTOR is activated, autophagy shuts down. This happens even when protein doesn't cause a dramatic insulin spike. The mTOR activation is a separate pathway. So what actually breaks a fast for autophagy? The rules are significantly stricter than the other two goals. Protein will shut down autophagy even without causing major insulin spikes. Any significant amount of calories might have an effect. This is why people fasting specifically for autophagy tend to be most strict about what they consume. The safest choices are water, unsweetened tea, and actually possibly black coffee. Wait, doesn't coffee contain calories? Shouldn't any calories disrupt autophagy? This is where we encounter a surprising twist. In 2014, a research team at INSERM, one of the leading medical research institutes in France, published a fascinating study in the journal Cell Cycle. They wanted to investigate how coffee affects autophagy at the cellular level. They gave mice coffee, both caffeinated and decaffeinated, then carefully examined what happened inside the cells of liver muscles and heart. The results surprised many people. Both types of coffee, caffeinated and decaffeinated, triggered increased autophagy. This happened within 1 to 4 hours after consumption. But here's what made the finding remarkable. The coffee actually reduced mTOR activity, the same effect that happens during fasting. Coffee was mimicking one of the key molecular signals of fasting itself. The researchers identified polyphenols in coffee, not caffeine, as the likely cause. These plant compounds seem to have effects similar to caloric restriction. Think about the paradox. Coffee contains calories. According to simple logic, coffee should disrupt autophagy. But research suggests the opposite. Coffee might actually enhance autophagy rather than break it. Important caveats. This was a study in mice, not humans. The science is still evolving. But this finding challenges the oversimplified rule that only pure water is acceptable for autophagy benefits. If you're fasting for autophagy and love coffee, there's encouraging news. Black coffee might be okay. It might even help. But remember, black, no sugar, no cream, no milk. Those additions would provide protein and carbohydrates that activate mTOR. There's one more phenomenon worth understanding. The cephalic phase insulin response. Here's something that surprises many people. Your brain can signal your pancreas to release insulin before any food reaches your stomach. When sweetness touches your tongue, taste receptors send signals to your brain. Your brain receives the message, sugar is coming, get ready. Your brain then signals your pancreas, start preparing insulin. All of this happens within minutes, before any food is digested, before any nutrients are absorbed. Your body is preparing based purely on taste. This is why artificial sweeteners are controversial. Even with 0 calories, the sweet taste might trigger some insulin response in some people. The brain detects sweetness and initiates the preparatory response even though no sugar is actually coming. Research shows mixed results. Some people respond, others don't. It appears individually variable. How do you know if you're affected? If you use artificial sweeteners and find yourself feeling hungrier afterward, that's a potential sign your body is responding. If you use them and continue losing weight without increased hunger, you might not be significantly affected. For fat burning, you could experiment and observe your response. For autophagy, the safest approach is avoiding all sweet tastes. There's one more factor few people consider: stress. It's not only food that affects your fast. Your mental and emotional state matters. When you're stressed, your body releases cortisol from your adrenal glands. This stress hormone tells your liver to release stored sugar into your bloodstream. Blood sugar rises, and when blood sugar rises, your pancreas releases insulin. This means psychological stress can indirectly disrupt your fast, not through eating food, but through your own hormones. Fasting while highly stressed may not be as effective as fasting while calm. This is why some people combine fasting with meditation or relaxation practices. They're optimizing not just what goes in their mouth, but the hormonal environment in their body. Fasting isn't only about what you don't eat. It's about the overall state of your body and mind. Let me give you practical guidance on specific items, generally safe for most fasting goals. Water, black coffee, green tea, black tea, herbal teas without sweetness, a squeeze of lemon in water, apple cider vinegar, electrolytes, including salt, potassium, magnesium. Most supplements and vitamins, though they absorb better with food. Not safe, sugar honey agave. Fruit juice, even natural, has fiber removed, leaving concentrated sugar. Large amounts of milk or cream. Protein shakes or amino acid supplements. Controversial diet sodas and artificial sweeteners. Some people tolerate them fine, others experience increased hunger. Test your own response. Now let's bring everything together clearly. What really breaks your fast? It depends on your goal. If you're fasting to burn fat, the gatekeeper is insulin. Avoid sugar, carbs, and large amounts of protein. Black coffee, unsweetened tea. A small splash of cream. Electrolytes. Lemon water are all acceptable. If you're fasting to improve insulin sensitivity, the gatekeeper is also insulin. The rules are similar. Avoid anything causing significant insulin spikes. If you're fasting for autophagy, the gatekeeper is mTOR. This is stricter. Protein can shut down autophagy through mTOR activation. Water is safest, but black coffee may actually enhance autophagy. Unsweetened tea is likely fine. There is no single right answer for everyone. The person who says coffee is fine, they're right for fat burning. The person who says coffee ruins everything, they might be applying stricter autophagy standards. The right answer matches your goal. Now you have the knowledge. You understand how insulin works, how it keeps fat locked away, why it needs to drop for fat burning. You understand mTOR and autophagy, why protein matters, not just carbohydrates. You know about the cephalic phase response, why sweetness might be an issue even without calories. You understand stress affects fasting through cortisol. Next time someone tells you coffee breaks a fast or that coffee is fine, you can ask the right question. Fasting for what goal? That's the power of understanding science instead of just following rules. So which goal are you fasting for? Fat-burning insulin, sensitivity, autophagy? Let me know in the comments. Some experts say only water preserves autophagy completely. Others point to research showing coffee might help. The science continues to evolve, and that's beautiful. We keep learning. What surprised you most in this video? The protein discovery, the coffee paradox, or stress and cortisol? Tell me in one word in the comments. If you want to understand more about what happens inside your body when you fast, subscribe and turn on notifications. We'll explore much more together. Next video, we'll look at what happens during the first 24 hours of fasting. Hour by hour. You'll be surprised what happens around hour 16.